welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're on a mission to uh, flip the script on what most people think of as authority and influence.
We are.
We are going deep inside the psychological weapons women use without knowing.
And this is such a fascinating area because it's not about being loud or, overtly powerful.
Yeah.
It's about sophisticated influence, the kind that works just beneath the surface. We're really talking about a kind of psychological mastery.
Right. It's about shaping how people see you and respond to you, but not through direct demands. It's through these subtle triggers that are just rooted in how we all behave.
Exactly. The kind of influence that's so profound, people often feel compelled to respond positively, but they can't quite put their finger on why.
We assume power has to be so visible, right?
Yeah.
But the leverage we're talking about today is quiet. It's deep.
And it's all based on understanding the, let's say, mechanics of the human mind.
Yeah.
We've actually distilled this down to 13 core strategies.
13.
And when you understand how these levers work, how the mind processes things like value, safety, obligation, you can move from just sort of stumbling upon success
To actually creating it intentionally.
to creating authentic, intentional impact every single time.
So let's unpack this. Where do we start?
We're going to start by challenging a really, really ingrained social habit, the need to fill empty air. We're starting with the surprising power of what you don't say.
Strategic silence.
Strategic silence. It works on a really basic psychological level. Humans, we instinctively hate conversational gaps. Silence creates this tension, this vacuum.
When you don't fill it.
Someone else will. They feel this overwhelming, almost evolutionary pressure to break that tension.
Okay, that sounds simple on the surface, but in a really high-stakes conversation, just staying quiet,
It feels awkward.
it feels incredibly awkward. Isn't there a risk you just come across as, aloof?
Yeah.
Or like you're not even interested?
And that's the discipline, right? That's where the real work is. You have to stay composed, but the payoff is just immense. Because in that silence, people rush to fill the void with something.
Information, maybe.
Information they didn't mean to reveal yet. Or concessions. That's the big one.
Give us a practical example, like a real-world use of that leverage.
Okay, think about a salary negotiation. This is a classic. They make you an offer, and instead of jumping in, you just look at them. You nod slowly, and you stay completely silent for, say, 5 or 6 seconds.
That would feel like an eternity.
It does, but the discomfort often becomes unbearable for them, not you. And what happens is they'll start negotiating against themselves. They'll say, well, we might be able to add a signing bonus, or...
I could probably round that up a bit.
Exactly, without you saying a single word. The first person who speaks after an offer is made, they're the one who loses leverage.
Wow. So the actionable tip for you listening is to just try it. Count to 5 silently in your next important chat and see what happens.
See what people volunteer. It's amazing. And this control over speaking, it leads right into our next idea, the mystery multiplier.
Ah, yes. This makes so much sense. If you're completely predictable, people's attention just, drops off a cliff.
Completely. But if you maintain a little bit of, let's call it inscrutability, you keep them perpetually engaged.
So what's the psychology there?
It activates what's called the need for cognitive closure. Basically, our brains hate an unsolved puzzle.
Right.
So if someone can't quite figure you out, you answer questions with thoughtful brevity, you resist that urge to overshare every single thing, their brain has to keep working on you.
So just by making them think a little harder, you're actually increasing your own perceived value.
That's it, exactly. If they know everything right away, the mental file's closed, they move on. But if that file stays open, the little bits of information you do share feel like gold.
That pairs perfectly with the next concept, selective scarcity.
It's the same core principle, isn't it? What's always available is, well, it's rarely valued.
It's just taken for granted.
It is. This leverages the psychological principle of loss aversion. If your time, your attention, your expertise is seen as limitless, it gets undervalued no matter how good it is. So you have to create strategic limitation.
And this isn't about being rude or playing games.
Not at all. It's about intentional boundary setting. It increases your perceived value.
This applies everywhere. If you reply to every single email within 2 minutes, you're basically training people that your time has no cost.
You're teaching them that your time is disposable. So the tip here is to establish clear professional boundaries. Let there be appropriate delays for non-urgent things. It's about respecting your own value, which then compels other people to respect it too.
Okay, let's shift. Part 2 gets into relational mastery and emotional control. And we're starting with one that I think is deeply counterintuitive for a lot of people.
I agree.
Calculated vulnerability is power. This is where it gets really interesting.
It really does. Because all the common advice is, never show weakness.
Right. Project strength at all time.
And in this context, that advice is just wrong. Strategically revealing select imperfections, it actually creates authentic bonds. It shows incredible self-confidence.
You're signaling, I'm so secure in my competence overall that I can admit to this one little thing.
Yes. But that word calculated is the whole engine here.
So what's the distinction? How do you know what to share and what not to share?
Okay, so you absolutely do not share a current weakness that undermines your competence. You wouldn't say, I'm totally overwhelmed by this deadline.
That just creates panic.
Right. Instead, you share a past struggle that you've already overcome. You show growth. You reveal the mountain you've already climbed, not the one you're currently struggling with. It humanizes you.
And it creates trust. It makes others feel safe opening up to you.
It does. Which, speaking of connection, brings us to emotional mirroring.
How we build that unconscious rapport almost instantly.
Yes. Emotional mirroring is about subtly, and I mean subtly, matching another person's emotional state, their energy, their tone, their pace of speech.
Why does that work so well?
Because our brains are just wired to feel safest with people who seem to get us on an emotional level. You're basically entering their reality first.
So you meet them where they are.
You meet them exactly where they are. And once that connection is solid, once they feel understood, you can then gradually, gently shift the emotional tone of the conversation toward where you want it to go.
And they just follow you.
They follow your lead because you've already anchored their trust. But I have to stress, this has to be authentic. If it feels mechanical, it backfires immediately.
Okay, now let's talk about conflict. Because fighting resistance head-on, that almost never works.
It just creates more resistance, which is why we need verbal aikido.
Like martial art.
The analogy is perfect. You're not blocking the attack. You're using their momentum against them. You redirect their opposition.
So in practice, what does that sound like if someone attacks your idea?
Instead of getting defensive, you might say something like, I can understand why you'd see it that way, or that's an interesting point.
You validate them first.
You validate their perspective, which lowers their defenses just enough for you to then introduce your own point. And a great little tip here for composure. If someone raises their voice at you,
You raise yours back.
no, you deliberately lower yours. You refuse to match their energy. It gives you absolute control and makes you look far more reasonable.
So if we put all these control techniques together, what do we get?
You get emotional sovereignty. It's the command over your own emotional responses. It's about removing a key vulnerability that other people might try to use as leverage.
It's that space between the stimulus and the response.
That's it. You're choosing your response rather than just reacting automatically.
Yeah.
You control the situation because you control yourself first.
Okay, let's move into part 3. This is more about outward-facing techniques, how you give value and how you gather hidden information. Let's start with the praise paradox.
Your approval is currency. And like any currency, it only has value if it isn't given away for free all the time.
So strategic, specific compliments.
They create a kind of psychological debt. People will want to maintain your approval, which positions you as an authority whose opinion really matters.
And the key there has to be specificity, right?
Yeah.
Good job is meaningless.
Completely meaningless. A generic good presentation is forgotten in seconds. But if you say, I really appreciated how you balanced the needs of both teams in that proposal, that shows you were actually paying deep attention.
And it makes the praise feel earned.
And when your praise has that kind of weight, your criticism, when you need to give it, also carries more weight.
Now, speaking of paying attention, the observer effect. Seeing what everyone else misses.
This is huge. People are constantly leaking information through nonverbal channels, microexpressions, little nervous habits.
Things they don't even know they're doing.
Exactly. But most of us miss it because we're too busy thinking about what we're going to say next.
We're formulating our witty reply instead of just watching.
Right. So if you just watch, if you really observe, you can spot the inconsistencies between what they're saying and what their body is telling you. It gives you a much more complete picture of what's really going on in their head.
And finally, let's talk about the reciprocity trigger. We're all just wired to repay debts.
We are. The key is to initiate an exchange with a small, genuine favor. It has to feel authentic.
So not something that obviously benefits you.
No, it has to be genuinely useful to them. Maybe you connect two people who should know each other or offer a piece of information they need, and this is crucial. It has to seem like there are no strings attached.
Because then it creates a natural desire to balance the scales.
Precisely. They feel an unconscious need to reciprocate, and very often that return favor is much larger than your initial contribution.
We have two quick ones left that are vital for long-term influence. First, tactical unpredictability.
This is just about strategic variation. If you're always predictable, always available, always the same, people stop paying close attention. They take you for granted.
So you mix it up.
You mix it up thoughtfully. It recaptures their attention and reminds them you're a dynamic person, not a machine.
And last, the peripheral power play.
This is influence from the sidelines. From advisory roles or informal networks, you can often achieve huge impact without any of the scrutiny or resistance that comes with a formal title. You're pulling the strings without being the visible leader.
We've covered a ton of ground today. I think the big takeaway is that true power, real influence, it doesn't shout.
It doesn't. It works through a much deeper, more nuanced understanding of people.
And there's a critical line here between manipulation and authentic influence.
There is. Manipulation leaves people feeling used. Authentic influence, done right, leaves them feeling understood and valued. These are tools for conscious, intentional impact.
So we've given you 13 of these strategies. Your next step, your journey to this kind of influence, it starts with just picking one or two. Maybe it's strategic silence or calculated vulnerability.
Pick one that resonates with you and just try it this week. And think about this. We so often define power by what we can demand or what we can take. But if genuine connection, if real warmth, can melt defenses faster than any argument ever could, what does that imply about where real influence actually comes from in our lives?
Something to think about. A new lens to look at the world through this week.